Hello, good people. I wanted to say a brief word about this young lady. I'm sure you've heard about this young Ukrainian woman who was murdered in cold blood on a train in Charlotte. And first of all, a couple of things I find interesting about this is that this happened weeks ago. And it's really just fully unfolding and coming out. And I really find it interesting. You should really take note of there are certain kinds of things and certain narratives that our mainstream media want to be promoted and things that they want to flood your timeline, your media feed, your social media feed, and all of the news outlets, the mainstream news outlets will carry it. But if it's something that they don't want you to know, then it'll be released like this, and it'll just kind of get slow walked. So that's the first thing. But as I learned about this, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and complete and just fury, just complete and utter disgust and rage about this egregious and senseless act. And the visual is powerful, much like it was with George Floyd. If you saw it, many people were outraged at the visual of it. And it's a single act, it's a single person. But the thing that I noticed about this thing that is so different is that the way our society has responded to this, and the people who are trying to downplay it or who don't want this to get out, I think the jig is up. I think it's time for us to stop pretending like these are the people who we should take counsel from with respect to what is and what is not justice. Because if anyone was concerned about justice in this scenario, they would be calling for the man who committed this heinous act. They would be calling for his life to be ended. Yes, this young man, if we're talking about real justice, deserves to be put to death. That's just a fact. Some of you might be appalled by that. Some of you might say, that's going too far. But you know, Proverbs 28:5 says this. It says, the wicked do not understand justice, but the righteous understand it fully. And when it comes to this justice thing, we need to go back to a simple biblical standard. There's going to be a lot of talk about so-called mental illness and all of this stuff. And you know what we can't have in our society? We can't have a perpetual, never-ending stream of so-called compassion for people who do egregious and heinous acts, while we have exactly the opposite for the victims of these heinous acts based on their skin color, based on their social economic status, so forth and so on. We cannot have that. We can't have outrage. We can't have selective outrage. And we can't forever and perpetually sweep these evil deeds under the rug. Somebody at some point is going to have to start paying the piper for this evil. And this is why we have to get back to the Bible. You know, the Bible says in Romans that the governor, the ruler, is God's minister, and they do not bear the sword in vain. And that phrase is instructive because it presupposes that the person who is acting in God's stead to execute justice will use the sword in executing that judgment. And what do we want to do? What are we doing with every person who does wickedness and who does evil? We're just wanting to say, oh, they just need services. We need mental health this, and we need that, and we need this. You know what, my friends? At some point, what we're going to have to be more concerned about is justice for the victims of these people and less excuse making for why they did it. I think this whole mental health thing has really started to, much like many of these things that we see with the transformer community, there's been a clear and obvious overreach. There's been a overplaying of the hand of these concepts of how we have to let everyone express themselves, or we have to make excuses for people's actions like they are, like these things, like they're innocent bystanders, like there are things that are happening to them, like they have no control over. When the truth of the matter is, many of these people are suffering from so-called mental illness because of abuse of drugs and alcohol and other things that were in fact their personal choice. And, there's a saying, I used to do drug and alcohol prevention, where they would say, first the man takes the drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes the man. And if you get to the place where the drink takes the man, you cannot get to that place unless you are the man that takes the drink. And so at some point, we're going to have to deal with the real wicked and heinous nature of these people's actions and not try to over-psychologize and excuse the evil, because we cannot have a society where we just deal with perpetual evil and make excuses for these wicked acts. These people deserve to be put to death. And I don't know if YouTube's going to censor this video because I said that, but I felt it necessary to say this is what justice, and I'm not calling for murder. I'm talking about judgment from the authorities, people doing their job as they're supposed to do it, which is the governor or the ruler or the person in charge is supposed to bear the sword for righteousness. They are to be a terror to evil and to evil works, not a terror to good. And that's what our system is becoming. So prayers to this young woman and her family, and not a deep philosophical message here today, but just something I wanted to get off my chest. Of course, if you're new here, I appreciate you stopping by. Stick around for more videos. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, my friends, God bless you.